The gospel world had no idea a storm was brewing behind the scenes. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Kirk Franklin's reunion. Praise Tour was being called one of the most powerful moments in gospel history. With names like Yolanda Adams, Fred Hammond, Tamela Mann, and the one and only Dorinda Clark Cole, fans were promised a night full of anointing, praise, and unity. The promo videos showed smiles, hugs, worship circles, and backstage prayers. But behind that polished image, something else was happening, something that would shake the entire gospel industry. You won't believe how quickly things began to fall apart. At first, Dorinda Clark Cole joined the tour with nothing but good intentions. She wasn't there for fame or recognition. She was there to minister. As one of the most respected gospel voices in history, she carried the legacy of the Clark sisters on her shoulders. Fans were excited to hear her powerful voice on stage again. But from the very first rehearsal, Dorinda started noticing signs that this wasn't going to be the spiritual experience she had expected. Rehearsals were rushed, schedules were changed last minute, and communication from Kirk's team was all over the place. This is how the confusion started. Sound checks were often skipped. Set times kept changing. Some artists were told one thing, only to find out something completely different when they arrived at the venue. Dorinda remained calm and professional, hoping it would get better. But insiders close to her said she felt something was off. She began raising concerns quietly about how older artists were being pushed to keep up with fast-paced performances meant for younger singers. Her fans wanted ministry, but what she was being asked to give looked more like performance. But here is the shocking part. While Kirk Franklin was the main name on the posters, it started to feel like everything was about him. Sources said he kept changing the flow of the show so he could shine more. Dorinda, dressed and ready, would sometimes be told her set was being shortened or pushed back. She didn't cause a scene. She kept smiling for the cameras. She kept praying. But each time her mic time was cut, something inside her broke a little more. One crew member said, "It wasn't just unfair. It felt like she was being disrespected on purpose." This is where it gets interesting. Even though Dorinda never showed her anger in public, she started calling the tour a circus with gospel music in private. She told one of her peers, "I didn't come out here to be someone's backup act. I came to do ministry, not to be managed like a product." That comment spread quickly, and others started nodding in agreement behind closed doors. But still, Dorinda kept showing up. Still performing, still smiling, until the third leg of the tour. And that's when everything changed. As the tour rolled into its third leg, visiting cities like Atlanta, Houston, and Detroit, the excitement from fans remained sky high. The shows were sold out, social media was flooded with videos of standing ovations, and everyone on the outside thought the gospel community was more united than ever. But behind the stage, things were falling apart, especially between Dorinda Clark Cole and Kirk Franklin. The tension that had been building quietly was about to explode, and it happened in a way no one saw coming. Atlanta was one of the biggest stops on the tour, a high-stakes night full of gospel media, label executives, and even reps from BET and Amazon Music. It was supposed to be a major moment for everyone involved. Dorinda had been told she'd get a full 12-minute segment to minister and close out with a special Clark Sisters medley. Her team had prepared everything down to the second, but just moments before she was supposed to step on stage, everything changed. A message came from Kirk's production manager, allegedly at Kirk's request. Her set was being cut down to 5 minutes. Another artist was being bumped ahead of her. Again? Dorinda was stunned. This wasn't the first time, and it felt like a slap in the face. She had prepared, rehearsed, prayed, and still, her segment was treated like it didn't matter. She was standing there, dressed, mic in hand, ready to go. "And then," she snapped, "we're not doing this again," she said quietly but firmly, according to one witness. What happened next had everyone whispering backstage. Dorinda walked straight into the production tent and asked to speak to Kirk directly. You won't believe what she told him. Sources say the conversation was intense but respectful. She didn't raise her voice, but her words cut deep. Dorinda told Kirk, "You don't treat legends like this. I came to uplift souls, not fight for stage time. This is supposed to be ministry, not a brand campaign for you." Kirk, caught off guard, tried to calm the situation, explaining that the show was always evolving and changes had to be made. But Dorinda wasn't backing down. People around her said you could see it in her eyes. She was done. What made things worse was that Dorinda's name was being used heavily in all the tour promotions. Fans were coming just to hear her sing "I'm Still Here" or "Take It Back." In some cities, she was removed from the lineup entirely or given less than 5 minutes to minister. It wasn't just a scheduling problem, it felt like a betrayal. One backup singer said, "It wasn't about ego for her. It was about feeling disrespected. She kept giving and giving, but no one gave her the same respect back." After Atlanta, something changed in Dorinda. She started keeping her distance. She stayed longer in her dressing room, avoided press, and only communicated through her assistant. Her performances were still powerful, because she's a professional, but those who knew her could see the light was dimming. After each show, she'd walk off stage, take a deep breath, and shake her head. The craziest part? No one dared to talk about it publicly until Houston. Houston was where everything reached the breaking point. Just days after the Atlanta incident, Dorinda was overheard telling another artist backstage, "When this tour ends, I'm done. I'm not picking up the phone if Kirk calls. Not again." At first, some thought she was just frustrated in the moment, but others could tell she meant every word. Still, no one imagined she would actually say it out loud for the world to hear. That all changed in Detroit. Detroit, the birthplace of the Clark sisters, was supposed to be a spiritual homecoming. The final show of the tour, a celebration, a night of joy, unity, and mutual respect. On stage, Dorinda gave her all. She worshipped like never before, smiled for her fans, and even led a spontaneous praise break that had the entire crowd on their feet. You never would have guessed she had been carrying so much inside. But once she stepped off that stage, Dorinda made her decision clear. After thanking her background singers and hugging the band, she made her way to the media area where a few gospel bloggers and Christian outlets were waiting for post-show interviews. And then she dropped the bomb. In a calm but serious voice, Dorinda said, "I'm grateful for the fans. I'm grateful for the ministry. But I have to be honest. I'm glad this tour is over. And to be even more honest, Kirk Franklin, don't call us no more." The entire room went silent. The bloggers didn't know what to say. Everyone froze. One interviewer nervously asked if she could explain. Dorinda didn't hesitate. "I'm a grown woman," she said. "I've been in this industry for over 40 years. I've seen the highs and the lows. But what I won't do anymore is allow myself to be part of anything that puts performance over purpose. I didn't come here to be featured. I came to minister. But what I experienced didn't always feel like ministry." That clip hit the internet within minutes. Gospel bloggers posted it. TikTok exploded. YouTube channels picked it up, and hashtags like Dorinda said what she said and Kirk don't call us started trending across gospel spaces. The reactions were mixed. Some people praised her for being real and standing up for herself. Others felt she should have kept things private. But what stood out the most was how many artists quietly agreed with her. One anonymous choir director tweeted, "Dorinda just said what a lot of folks on that tour were thinking, but didn't have the platform or the courage to say." Other singers, background vocalists, and musicians began sending private messages to bloggers and podcasters saying the same thing: disorganized shows, favoritism, last-minute changes, and an overall lack of respect. But here's where it gets interesting. No one else had dared to speak out until Dorinda did. Kirk Franklin, on the other hand, stayed silent. His social media went quiet except for a few general posts like God is still good and stay focused. But there was no direct response, no apology, no explanation. And in the gospel world, silence often says more than words. Meanwhile, Dorinda doubled down. In an Instagram Live, she addressed the situation again. People can take it how they want, she said. I didn't say it to tear down. I said it to protect my peace. I love everyone on that tour, including Kirk. But love doesn't mean silence, and it doesn't mean submission to chaos. She closed the live with a Bible verse. To everything there is a season, and this season is over. And just like that, it was clear. Dorinda wasn't being messy. She wasn't looking for attention. She was done. And now the gospel world was left asking questions they never expected to face. After Dorinda Clark Cole's bold declaration in Detroit, the gospel industry was shaken to its core. Her words spread like wildfire, not just on blogs and social media, but across church circles, gospel radio stations, and even national news platforms. People couldn't stop talking about it. But this story didn't end with one statement. In fact, what happened next revealed something much deeper, because this wasn't just about a tour. It was about years of quiet frustration finally coming to light. You won't believe how many voices followed Dorinda's lead. Gospel forums lit up, anonymous insiders began messaging podcasters and influencers, confirming that what Dorinda said was only the beginning. One backup vocalist who toured with Kirk in the past wrote, "It's always the same formula, all smiles in front of the fans, but behind closed doors, confusion, ego, and control." Dorinda wasn't being shady, she was telling the truth. Another artist shared that many performers on the tour had privately complained about disorganized sound checks, sudden setlist changes, and unequal stage time. But none of them spoke out publicly, until now. Dorinda's courage gave others permission to finally breathe, finally say what had been sitting heavy on their hearts. And just like that, the silence was broken. The gospel industry's unwritten rule, stay quiet to keep the peace, was no longer working. What makes this story different? Even younger gospel artists began speaking up. Singers under 30, many of whom grew up idolizing Dorinda and the Clark sisters, started tweeting in support. One wrote, "Legends like Dorinda didn't walk so we could be mistreated. Boundaries are holy too." It sparked a new hashtag, Ministry, not management. And with that, the movement grew louder. It wasn't just about one woman standing up. It was about an entire generation saying enough is enough. Church leaders even joined the conversation. One well-known bishop posted, "If a tour becomes more about spotlight than salvation, then the saints are right to walk away." But destiny took an unexpected turn when new rumors began to spread. Insiders close to the Clark sisters revealed that Dorinda's issues with Kirk Franklin went deeper than just the tour. She had quietly been concerned about the direction of gospel music for years, how it was becoming more about branding, image, and marketing than real ministry. At a women's ministry conference weeks after the tour, Dorinda was asked what advice she had for upcoming gospel artists. Her response stopped the room. "Don't confuse influence with anointing, and don't mistake a platform for purpose. Some people have built gospel empires, but what good is an empire if it has no altar?" She didn't say Kirk's name, but everyone knew who she was talking about. Sources even claimed that years ago, there were plans for a full Clark Sisters and Kirk Franklin collaboration album, but it fell apart over creative control. Dorinda wanted a worship-centered sound. Kirk, they say, wanted something more crossover and beat-heavy. She felt it lacked spiritual depth, and that creative clash was never resolved. So when she said, "Don't call us no more," it wasn't just about a tour, it was about a pattern she could no longer ignore. Since then, other gospel veterans began speaking out, some subtly, others more openly. A quiet revolution is now taking shape in gospel music, one that demands respect for legends, one that calls for transparency, one that says ministry must be sacred again. And through it all, Dorinda never sounded bitter. She didn't drag anyone's name through the mud. She simply said, I'm at an age where I don't need the stage. I've got my legacy, my peace, and my relationship with God. That's enough. So what can we learn from all this? Dorinda Clark Cole stood up, not for attention, but for principle. She spoke up for every artist who ever felt pushed aside in the name of progress. She reminded the gospel world that this music isn't about ego or applause. It's about truth, about healing, about God. And if her words felt like a warning, it's because they were. To Kirk Franklin, the message was loud and clear. To gospel fans, it's time to stop idolizing and start paying attention. And to the next generation of gospel artists, don't trade your anointing for someone else's stage. Because when your calling is real, you don't need permission to shine. God already put you on.